While she swayed in his arms, I slipped the ring into her sister's hand and walked out of her life for good. The funny thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. My father often said that, and like so much of his wisdom, I truly grasped it only when I experienced it firsthand. My name is Ethan Blake. I own Blake's Custom Off-Road, the only shop in Riverside, Montana, that can transform your ordinary Jeep into a rugged, mountain-conquering machine or breathe new life into your ancient Bronco. I built this business from the ground up over 20 years, starting with nothing but a toolbox in a rented garage with a leaky roof. Now I've got 6 bays for full-time mechanics, and enough work that we're booked at least 3 weeks out. But that's not what this story is about. This is about handing my wedding ring to my sister-in-law Rachel, while my wife, Selena, slow danced with the man who was both her lover and accomplice in theft. The warning signs had been there for months. I just didn't want to acknowledge them. Maybe that makes me naive. But when you love someone, you extend them the benefit of the doubt until you simply can't anymore. It started when Selena hired Mark Weller as a business consultant to help us scale the operation. Her words, not mine. I never warmed to the guy from the moment he walked into my shop wearing a suit that cost more than some of my customers earned in a month. But Selena insisted he had the connections and expertise to propel us to the next level. "Ethan, we need to think bigger," she told me one night after dinner. Lucas, her son from her first marriage, was upstairs doing homework. The kid had started calling me Dad 3 years ago, and it still brought tears to my eyes every time. "The shop is doing well, but we could be doing so much better. Mark believes we could open a second location in Billings within a year." "We've discussed this," I said, loading the dishwasher. "Expansion means debt, and I avoid debt. My dad taught me that." She rolled her eyes in a way that made me feel like some country bumpkin. "Your dad's farm barely breaks even. Is that really the business model you want to follow?" That comment stung. My parents' farm had been in the family for over 70 years. Sure, it wasn't raking in millions, but it fed my family and put me through school. My parents, Sam and Grace Blake, had worked that land with dignity. They were semi-retired now, but the farm still produced. I helped out when I could, though the shop kept me busy. "The farm is not up for discussion," I stated firmly. "And neither is debt." Selena sighed dramatically. "Fine, we'll find another way." Looking back, that was the moment she started planning. I just didn't know it yet. The changes were subtle at first. Selena began dressing differently, more expensive clothes, fancier makeup. She'd been a waitress when we met, comfortable in jeans and t-shirts. Suddenly she was talking about designer brands I'd never heard of. "Where did you get that?" I asked one evening as she walked in wearing a dress that looked like it cost a week's profits. "Oh, this?" She twirled around, showing it off. "End of season sale. Practically a steal." I nodded, though something felt off. Selena had taken over the bookkeeping for the shop about a year after we married. She had a head for numbers, she'd said. I trusted her with that side of things while I focused on what I knew best, fixing trucks and keeping customers happy. Then came the meetings. Suddenly, Selena was having dinner meetings, lunch meetings, coffee meetings, all with Mark Weller and potential investors or partners or whatever the hell they were. She'd come home late, smelling faintly of whiskey and wearing a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. One night she didn't come home until 3 a.m. I was sitting in the kitchen, a cold cup of coffee in front of me, when she stumbled through the door. "Jesus, Ethan," she gasped, hand on her chest. "You scared me half to death. What are you doing sitting in the dark?" "Waiting for my wife to come home," I said, keeping my voice level. "It's 3 o'clock in the morning, Selena." She waved a dismissive hand, dropping her purse on the counter. "We closed a deal with a potential investor. Had to celebrate." "Don't start, Ethan," she warned, kicking off her heels. "I'm bringing in serious money for us. The least you could do is be supportive." "Supportive of what, exactly? You haven't shown me any paperwork on these investors. Haven't introduced me to any of them. For all I know, you're just out drinking with Mark Weller every night." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "Is that what you think? That I'm cheating on you?" I stood up, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know what to think anymore, Selena. You're different. The shop's different. Everything's changing. And I don't know if I like where it's heading." "That's your problem," she snapped. "You're afraid of change. Afraid of success. Mark says." "I don't give a damn what Mark says." I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. I never raised my voice, and the shock on her face showed it. "This is my business, mine. I built it from nothing, and I won't have some smooth-talking city boy in an expensive suit telling me how to run it." Selena's expression hardened. "Our business, Ethan, or did you forget that I do all the books? That I'm the one handling the finances while you play with your trucks. Play with my trucks? I echoed, incredulous. Those trucks pay for this house, for your fancy dresses and your nights out with Mark. Don't you dare act like what I do is a hobby. She laughed, a cold sound that cut through me. You think too small, Ethan. Always have. That's why we're still in this crappy little town when we could be so much more. This crappy little town is my home, I said quietly. Our home. Or it used to be. Selena sighed, running a hand through her hair. I'm going to bed. We can talk about this when you're being reasonable. As she walked upstairs, I sat back down at the kitchen table, a hollowness spreading in my chest. Something was very wrong in my marriage, and I was starting to think it might be beyond fixing. My buddy John Garrett was the first to give me concrete information. We were at his auto parts store after hours, having a beer in his office. You know, Selena and that consultant guy were at the Rusty Nail last night, right? He said, not looking at me directly. I took a long pull from my beer. Business meeting, probably? John snorted. Some business. They were in a booth in the back, and she had her hand on his leg under the table. Jenny was waitressing and saw the whole thing. I wanted to punch him for saying it, but John had been my friend since high school. He wouldn't lie to me. You sure, buddy? Was all I could manage. As sure as I'm sitting here, he said. I wouldn't tell you if I wasn't certain, brother. You know that. I nodded, feeling sick. I appreciate it. There's more, John said hesitantly. They left together. Jenny said they were all over each other in the parking lot, got into his car and drove off. The image hit me like a physical blow. Selena kissing Mark, his hands on her body, both of them laughing about the fool husband at home. I need to see it, I said suddenly. John blinked. What? I need to see them together. Need to know for sure. Ethan, man, don't do that to yourself, will you? I cut him off. If it was Lisa cheating on you, wouldn't you want to see it with your own eyes? He was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I would. Then help me, I said. Next time they're at the Rusty Nail, call me. 2 nights later, my phone rang at 9:30 p.m. Selena had left an hour earlier for another meeting. They're here, John said without preamble. Back booth, same as before. On my way, I said. I told Lucas I had to go check on a customer's emergency repair. He barely looked up from his video game, just nodded and said, Later, Dad. The Rusty Nail was the kind of dive bar that never seemed to change. Same neon beer signs, same scarred wooden bar, same country music playing just a little too loud. I parked across the street and sat for a minute, gathering myself. Part of me wanted to storm in there, make a scene, drag Selena out by her arm and beat Mark Weller to a pulp. But that wasn't me. Never had been. I entered quietly, nodding to a few familiar faces who looked surprised to see me there. John caught my eye from the bar and subtly tilted his head toward the back. I moved through the crowd, sticking to the shadows until I had a clear view of the back booth. And there they were. Selena was pressed against Mark's side, his arm around her, his mouth at her ear, saying something that made her laugh. As I watched, she turned her head and kissed him. Not a quick peck, but a deep, passionate kiss that told me everything I needed to know. My hand tightened on the beer bottle John had pressed into it when I arrived. For a moment, I considered smashing it against the wall, causing the scene I'd promised myself I wouldn't make. Instead, I drank it down in one long pull, set it gently on a nearby table and walked out. John found me sitting in my truck, staring at nothing. You okay? He asked, leaning against the driver's side door. No, I said honestly. But I will be. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But when I figure it out, it's going to be on my terms, not theirs. When I got home that night, Selena was already there, claiming her meeting had ended early. She even tried to initiate sex, something that had become rare in recent months. I made an excuse about being tired and she didn't push it, just rolled over with a huff of annoyance. I lay awake all night listening to her breathe, wondering how we'd ended up here, how the woman I'd built a life with could betray me so completely. The final confirmation came from Lucas, of all people. The kid was 15 now, smart as a whip and observant as hell. He was helping me replace the transmission in a 2010 Tacoma one Saturday when he just came out with it. Dad, is Mom cheating on you? I nearly dropped the torque wrench on my foot. What makes you ask that, bud? He shrugged, but his eyes were serious. I heard her on the phone the other day. She said stuff like, he doesn't suspect anything and I can't wait to see you. Plus, she's always texting and then hiding her phone when anyone walks in. My heart sank. It's one thing to suspect your wife is cheating. It's another thing entirely when her kid notices it too. I don't know for sure, I said carefully. but I'm going to find out. If she is, it's not your fault, Lucas said, handing me a socket wrench. Mark's a douchebag anyway. He talks to me like I'm 5. I had to smile at that. Language, bud. Yeah, he is a douchebag. He came by the house last week when you were out getting parts, Lucas continued, his face darkening. Mom thought I was at Jason's, but I came home early. They were in the kitchen, and he had his hands all over her. I froze. In our house. Lucas nodded, anger flashing in his eyes. I wanted to punch him, but I just went back outside and made a lot of noise coming in the second time. By then, they were sitting at the table with papers spread out, pretending to work. Jesus, I muttered. In our home where we'd built a life, where Lucas lived, it was a level of disrespect I hadn't even considered. There's something else, Lucas said hesitantly. Something I found in Mom's desk. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wasn't snooping. I swear I needed a pen and her drawer was open and I saw this. I unfolded the paper. It was a bank statement for an account I'd never seen before, in Selena's name only. The balance was over $50,000. Where the hell did this money come from? I said, more to myself than to Lucas. Look at the deposits, he said, pointing. They match up with money from the shop. I checked the dates against the books Mom keeps on her computer. I stared at my stepson, a mixture of pride and sadness washing over me. You figured all this out on your own? He nodded. I'm not stupid. I know something bad is happening. I pulled him into a rough hug. This boy who wasn't my blood, but was my son in every way that mattered. You're the furthest thing from stupid, Lucas. And I promise you I'm going to fix this. That night I started digging deeper. I waited until Selena was asleep, then used her laptop. Her password was easy to guess. Lucas's birthday, the same one she used for everything. The evidence was all there, barely hidden. Emails between her and Mark discussing their plans, bank transfers, fake invoices to shell companies. They weren't just having an affair. They were systematically draining my business. But there was something else too. Something that made my blood run cold. They weren't just stealing from the shop. They were planning to take my parents' farm too. Once we have the old man's signature on the loan papers, we're home free, Mark had written in one email. The bank already approved it based on the land value. $1.2 million, babe. We can be in Mexico by Christmas. Selena's reply. He suspects nothing. Thinks it's all from the business expansion. God, he's so trusting, it's almost too easy. I printed everything, my hands shaking with rage, and stored the papers in a lockbox at John's store. Then I called my parents, trying to keep my voice casual. Dad, has anyone approached you about taking out a loan against the farm? I asked. Funny you should mention that, my father said. Selena stopped by yesterday with some paperwork. Said you two were thinking of expanding the shop and needed collateral for a small business loan. Wanted us to put up the farm. My stomach dropped. And what did you tell her? That we'd think about it. Your mother wasn't too keen on the idea, to be honest. Farm's been in the family too long to risk it. Good, I said, relief washing over me. Don't sign anything, Dad. Not until you talk to me first. Everything okay, son? He asked. I hesitated. Just some business decisions I need to think through. I'll come by tomorrow and we can talk. The next day I drove out to the farm. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind that reminds you why Montana is called Big Sky Country. The mountains were sharp against the horizon, and the air smelled of pine and fresh-turned earth. My parents' farm was nothing fancy, a 2-story farmhouse that had seen better days, a big red barn and fields stretching out as far as the eye could see. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, real. Everything that Selena and Mark weren't. My dad was waiting on the porch, a cup of coffee in his weathered hands. At 70, Sam Blake was still strong as an ox, though his hair had gone white and his face was etched with deep lines from years of working in the sun. Something's wrong, he said as soon as I sat down next to him. Not a question, a statement. My dad always could read me like a book. Yeah, I admitted. Something's very wrong. I told him everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the plan to take out a loan against the farm and disappear. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. I knew there was something off about that woman, my mother said when she joined us halfway through. Grace Blake had never fully warmed to Selena, though she tried for my sake. Too slick by half. Why didn't you say something? I asked. She patted my hand. Would you have listened? You were in love. I was a fool, I said bitterly. No, my father cut in sharply. You trusted your wife. That doesn't make you a fool, son. It makes you a decent man. She's the one who's going to have to live with what she's done. If I have anything to say about it, she'll be living with it in prison, I said. Her and Mark both. My dad nodded slowly. What do you need from us? Just don't sign anything, I said. And if either of them contacts you, let me know immediately. I'm working on a plan. What about Lucas? My mother asked, concern in her eyes. She'd always had a soft spot for the boy. He knows, I said. He's the one who helped me figure it out. He's a good kid, Mom. Smarter than his mother gives him credit for. Bring him out here this weekend, she said. I'll make his favorite chocolate cake. He shouldn't have to deal with all this tension at home. I agreed, grateful once again for my parents and their unwavering support. Back in town, I met with Ellen Cortez, the toughest lawyer in the county. She listened to my story, examined the evidence I'd collected, and smiled a smile that reminded me of a wolf eyeing a wounded deer. You've got them dead to rights, she said. Financial fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit mortgage fraud with the farm. Plus, Montana is one of the few states that still allows alienation of affection lawsuits. I don't care about suing for the affair, I said. I just want my business back and I want to make sure they can't touch my parents' farm. Ellen nodded. We can file first thing Monday morning. But, she hesitated. But what? Timing is everything in cases like this, she said. If they get wind that you're onto them, they might accelerate their plans or destroy evidence. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we wait until they make their next move, she said. Let them think they're still in control. Meanwhile, we get all our ducks in a row. Police, bank records, everything. Then we drop the hammer when they least expect it. It made sense, though the thought of continuing to live with Selena, pretending everything was normal, made my skin crawl. But I'd do it if it meant catching them red-handed. That night at dinner, Selena announced that her cousin Amber was getting married in 2 weeks. It's going to be at the Riverside Country Club, she said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. Everyone will be there. I already bought a new dress. Sounds nice, I said, forcing a smile. Will Mark be there? She paused just for a second, but I caught it. I think so. Amber invited him. They've become friends. Great, I said. It'll be good to socialize with him outside of our work. Selena studied me, perhaps trying to detect sarcasm, but I kept my expression neutral. Yes, it will, she finally said. I think you two should get to know each other better. Oh, I intend to, I replied and raised my glass. To new friendships. She clinked her glass against mine, a triumphant gleam in her eye that made me want to flip the table. Instead, I ate my dinner and discussed Lucas's upcoming science project, all while planning exactly how I was going to bring my wife's world crashing down around her. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I paced the garage, a bottle of bourbon in hand, rehearsing what I would say, what I would do. Part of me wanted to confront Selena right then, to wake her up and demand answers, to see the look on her face when she realized her game was up. But Ellen's advice kept me in check. Timing was everything. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, one of those perfect Montana summer days that reminds you why you live here despite the brutal winters. I put on my best suit, the one I'd bought for our own wedding 8 years ago. It still fit, though a bit tighter around the shoulders from all the work at the shop. Selena looked stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than most people in Riverside made in a week. Her dark hair was swept up, exposing her neck in a way that used to drive me crazy. Now I just felt numb looking at her. You look handsome, she said, straightening my tie. Her fingers lingered on my chest, and for a moment, I felt a pang of what might have been grief for the marriage I thought we had. You too, I said. Beautiful, I mean. She smiled, that dazzling smile that had first caught my attention when she was serving me coffee at Dot's Diner all those years ago. This is going to be a night to remember, she said. Yes, I agreed. I think it will be. The ceremony was held in the garden of the country club with the mountains as a backdrop. It was beautiful, I had to admit. Though I barely registered the vows or the music, my mind was focused on what would come after. At the reception, Selena disappeared within minutes, no doubt to find Mark. I mingled, making small talk with people I'd known my whole life, people who had no idea what was about to happen. John found me by the bar. You okay? You look like you're about to jump out of your skin. I took a sip of my whiskey neat. I'm fine. Just not a big fan of these things. He glanced around the room. Selena's been hanging all over that consultant guy all night. You see that? I've seen everything, John, I said quietly. And I'm handling it. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Whatever you need. You know I'm there, right? I clapped him on the shoulder. I know. Thanks, brother. As the evening wore on, I kept one eye on Selena and Mark. They weren't even trying to be discreet anymore, dancing close, his hand on her lower back, whispering in each other's ears and laughing. The sight of them made my blood boil, but I channeled that anger into resolve. The band started playing a slow song, Can't Help Falling in Love. The dance floor filled with couples. Selena and Mark were at the center, her head on his shoulder, his hand a little too low on her back. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. My moment had come. I made my way across the room to where Rachel, Selena's sister, was sitting. Rachel had never liked Mark, had warned Selena that he seemed off when they first met. Selena had dismissed her concerns as jealousy. "Hey Ethan," Rachel said as I approached. "Some party, huh?" I sat down next to her. "Rachel, I need you to do something for me." She must have heard something in my voice because her expression immediately turned serious. "What's wrong?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wedding ring. I'd taken it off for the first time in 8 years that morning. It felt strange not to have it on. "I need you to give this to your sister," I said, placing the gold band in her palm. Rachel's eyes widened. "Ethan, what?" "Tell her the marriage is over," I continued, my voice steady. "Tell her I know about her and Mark. I know about the money they've been stealing from the shop. I know about their plans for my parents' farm." Rachel looked from the ring to me, then to the dance floor where Selena and Mark were still swaying to the music, lost in their own world. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I knew something was going on. But I never thought." "It's worse than you think," I said. "But don't worry, I've got it handled. I just wanted you to know why I'm leaving." "What about Lucas?" she asked. "I'm going to pick him up from the kids' table and take him home. He already knows something's wrong. I'll explain everything to him tonight." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. You didn't deserve this." I managed a small smile. No one ever deserves betrayal, but it's how we handle it that matters. I stood up, feeling lighter somehow. "Goodbye, Rachel." As I walked away, I heard her call after me. "What should I tell Selena when she asks where you've gone?" I turned back one last time. "Tell her to enjoy the dance. It's the last one she'll have for a while." I found Lucas playing on his phone at a table with some other teenagers. "Hey bud, you ready to get out of here?" He looked up, relief clear on his face. "God, yes. This is so boring." "Go say goodbye to your grandparents," I said, nodding toward Selena's parents across the room. "I'll meet you at the truck." As Lucas made his way through the crowd, I took one last look at the dance floor. Selena and Mark were still dancing, oblivious to the fact that their world was about to collapse. I felt no satisfaction, just a hollow ache where my heart used to be. I walked out of the country club without looking back. But as I was getting into my truck, a hand grabbed my arm. Running away so soon? It was Mark Weller, his perfect smile slightly crooked from too much champagne. I shook off his hand. "What do you want, Mark?" "Just wondering why you're leaving your beautiful wife all alone at a wedding," he said, his words slurring slightly. "Not very gentlemanly of you." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing but a con man in an expensive suit. "She's not alone. She has you, doesn't she?" His smile faltered. "I don't know what you're implying." "Cut the crap," I said, stepping closer until we were almost nose to nose. "I know exactly what you're doing. With my wife, with my business, with my parents' farm. All of it." The blood drained from his face. "Ethan, listen. It's not what you think, isn't it?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of one of his emails to Selena. "Mexico by Christmas, right? How's that working out for you?" He swallowed hard. "We can work something out. A business arrangement." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "A business arrangement? You've been screwing my wife and stealing from me for months, and you want to talk business?" "Keep your voice down," he hissed, glancing around the parking lot. "What? Afraid someone might hear the truth?" I was practically shouting now. All the rage I'd been suppressing finally breaking free. "Afraid they might find out that Mark Weller is nothing but a petty con artist preying on small business owners?" He grabbed my jacket lapels. "You don't know who you're messing with, Blake." I knocked his hands away. "No, you don't know who you're messing with. I've got every email, every bank transfer, every fake invoice. By this time tomorrow the police will have it all. So enjoy your last night of freedom because prison jumpsuits aren't nearly as nice as that fancy suit of yours." His face contorted with rage. For a second I thought he might throw a punch. Instead he spat at my feet. "You're bluffing. You've got nothing." "Try me," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Better yet, ask Selena what her son found in her desk drawer." Ask her if she thinks a judge will be lenient when they find out you two are planning to defraud an elderly couple out of their family farm. That hit home. Mark's eyes widened and he took a step back. This isn't over, Blake? Yes, I said. It is. Just then Lucas came jogging up. Dad, everything okay? I put my arm around his shoulders. Everything's fine, bud. Mr. Weller was just leaving. Mark looked between us, his jaw working like he wanted to say something else but thought better of it. He turned and stalked back toward the country club. What was that about? Lucas asked as we got into the truck. Just settling some business, I said, starting the engine. We've got a big day tomorrow. The next morning all hell broke loose. I was up early having barely slept. Lucas was still in bed. We'd had a long talk the night before, and he'd taken the news about his mother better than I expected. I kind of figured something like this was happening, he'd said. She's been different worse. I'd called my parents too, warning them not to sign anything and telling them I'd explain everything soon. Then I'd emailed Ellen Cortez to set the legal wheels in motion. At 9 a.m. sharp, my phone started ringing. Selena. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the text. Where are you? We need to talk right now. You're making a huge mistake, Ethan. Call me back. I ignored them all. Instead, I called the bank and froze our joint accounts. I changed the locks on the shop and the house. I contacted our suppliers and made sure they knew I was the only one authorized to place orders. By noon, Selena showed up at the house, pounding on the door. I opened it calmly, standing in the doorway so she couldn't push past me. What the hell do you think you're doing? She demanded, her face flushed with anger. She was still wearing last night's makeup, her hair a mess. She'd probably gone home with Mark. I think that's my line, hon, I said. Where's your boyfriend? She blanched, then quickly recovered. I don't know what you're talking about. Let me in, Ethan. This is my house too. Not anymore, I said. Not after what you and Mark tried to pull. The embezzlement, the plan to take out a loan against my parents' farm. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Her expression changed, calculation replacing anger. You're overreacting. Yes, Mark and I got close. Too close. I made a mistake. But the business stuff was all legitimate expansion plans. I actually laughed. Save it for your lawyer, Selena. Mine has already filed charges. The police will probably be picking you up later today. That got through to her. Charges? Are you insane? I'm your wife. Not for much longer, I said. Rachel has my ring. Consider yourself served. You can't prove anything, she hissed. But I could see the fear in her eyes now. Actually, I can prove everything, I said. Every transfer, every fake invoice, every altered ledger entry, and those text messages about the farm loan. Not smart to leave that kind of evidence on your phone. She lunged at me suddenly, trying to slap me. But I caught her wrist. Don't, I said quietly. Just don't. It's over, Selena. What about Lucas? She demanded, wrenching her arm away. You can't keep my son from me. I wouldn't dream of it, I said. But he's old enough to decide where he wants to live. And after seeing you with Mark at the wedding, I don't think he's feeling too warm toward you right now. As if on cue, Lucas appeared behind me. Mom, he said coldly. You should go. The look on Selena's face was almost worth all the pain. Almost. Lucas, baby, you don't understand, she began. I understand fine, he cut her off. I saw you dancing with him. I'm not stupid. Dad told me everything last night. She flinched at Lucas calling me Dad, something that had once filled her with joy. You turned my son against me, she said, her voice rising. After everything I've done for you, I worked tirelessly managing your books, and this is how you repay me. You mean stealing from the business and trying to swindle my parents? I said. Yeah, real hard work. You ungrateful bastards, she spat. Before me you were just a grease monkey with a glorified garage. I gave you class, connections, you gave me lies, I corrected her. And debt and betrayal. Not exactly the foundation of a healthy marriage, Selena. She looked past me to Lucas. Pack your things, Lucas. You're coming with me. Lucas crossed his arms. No, I'm not. I'm your mother. And he's been more of a father to me in 8 years than my real dad was in my entire life, Lucas shot back. I'm staying here. Selena's face crumpled, but I knew her well enough to recognize it as an act. This isn't over, she said, backing away from the door. You'll regret this, Ethan. I already regret a lot of things, I said. But this isn't one of them. I closed the door gently but firmly in her face. You okay? I asked Lucas, who was standing there looking shell-shocked. He nodded. Yeah, I think so. That was intense. I put an arm around his shoulders. It's going to get worse before it gets better. You sure you want to stay here through all this? He looked up at me, his eyes suddenly looking older than his 15 years. You're not getting rid of me that easily, Dad. 2 hours later, there was another knock at the door. This time, it was Detective Sandra Miller from the Riverside Police Department along with 2 uniformed officers. Mr. Blake, she said, we need to ask you some questions about a complaint that's been filed against you. Let me guess, I said. My wife claims I've stolen money from our business, or maybe that I'm trying to force her out of her home. Detective Miller's eyebrows rose. Something like that. How did you know? I smiled grimly. Because I've spent the morning filing my own complaint against her and her boyfriend, Mark Weller. Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy to commit mortgage fraud. I've got all the evidence right here. I handed her a thick folder of documents. Bank statements, emails, text messages, everything I'd collected over the past few weeks. Miller flipped through the papers, her expression growing more serious with each page. This is extensive. I'm thorough, I said. Had to be. They're good at covering their tracks. She nodded slowly. We'll need to take your formal statement down at the station, and we'll need to look through your business records. Whatever you need, I said. I want them stopped before they can hurt anyone else. It turned out that Mark Weller wasn't even his real name. He was Michael Wilson, a con man who had pulled similar scams in at least 2 other states, targeting small business owners through their spouses. It's a pattern, Detective Miller explained as we sat in her office later that week. He finds a successful business with a vulnerable partner, usually someone who feels unappreciated or overlooked. He seduces them, convinces them they deserve more, and then helps them siphon money from the business. Once they've taken all they can, they disappear, leaving the partner to take the fall. And Selena fell for this? I asked, still unable to fully comprehend how the woman I'd shared my life with could betray me so completely. People believe what they want to believe, Miller said. And Wilson is very good at what he does. The detective hesitated, then added, there's something else you should know. We found evidence that Wilson wasn't working alone. There was a woman involved, Jennifer Davis. She specializes in emotional manipulation. What does that mean? It means that while Wilson was working on your wife, Davis was supposed to get close to you, create a wedge in your marriage, make you vulnerable too. According to the messages we recovered, she was planning to approach you soon, playing the sympathetic friend who understands what you're going through. I felt sick. So, this was all a setup from the beginning. A well-orchestrated one, Miller confirmed. But you threw a wrench in their plans by discovering everything before Davis could make her move. I left the police station feeling like I'd narrowly escaped something even worse than I'd imagined. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings and damage control at the shop. Mark/Michael was arrested trying to cross the Canadian border with most of their stolen money. Selena was picked up at a motel outside of town where she'd been hiding since our confrontation. I didn't attend their arraignment. I couldn't bring myself to see Selena in handcuffs, despite everything she'd done. Lucas wanted to go, but I talked him out of it. Some images you can't unsee, I told him. You don't need that picture of your mom in your head. He nodded, relieved I think to have the decision made for him. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place a week later when a woman I didn't recognize showed up at my parents' farm. My dad called me immediately. There's someone here asking about you, he said. Says she's an old friend from high school. Jennifer something. Wanted to know if we'd heard from you. Said she's worried. My blood ran cold. Dad, that's her. The accomplice Detective Miller told me about. Don't tell her anything. I'm on my way. I made it to the farm in record time. Jennifer Davis was still there, sitting at my mother's kitchen table, drinking coffee like she belonged there. She was attractive in a calculated way, not too beautiful to be intimidating, but pretty enough to turn heads. She had a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ethan, she exclaimed when I walked in. It's so good to see you after all these years. Cut the crap, I said. I know who you are and why you're here. Her smile didn't waver, but something dangerous flashed in her eyes. I don't know what you mean. I just heard about your troubles and wanted to check on you. We were friends once. No, we weren't, I said. Because you didn't go to Riverside High. You never lived here. You're Jennifer Davis and you work with Michael Wilson, aka Mark Weller. My parents looked between us, confusion clear on their faces. Son, my father began. This woman is part of the group that's been stealing from my business, I explained, not taking my eyes off Jennifer. And now she's here trying to manipulate you into signing over the farm. Jennifer's expression hardened. You can't prove any of that. Actually, the police already have, I said. Detective Miller says hello, by the way. They've been tracking your phone since you entered town limits. It was a bluff, but it worked. Jennifer stood abruptly, knocking over her coffee cup. This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to these accusations. You're right, I said, stepping aside to reveal Detective Miller and two uniformed officers standing in the doorway. You don't have to listen. You just have to come with them. The look of shock on Jennifer's face was priceless. As the officers led her away, Miller turned to me. Good call on the heads-up. We've been looking for Davis for weeks. I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Is it over now? Almost, she said. Wilson and your wife are facing serious charges. With Davis in custody, we've got the whole operation. Ex-wife? I corrected quietly. She's my ex-wife now. The trials were quick. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Mark/Michael pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. He got 15 years. Jennifer Davis turned state's evidence and received a reduced sentence of 5 years. Selena maintained her innocence right up until the prosecutor played recordings of her planning the farm loan scam with Mark. Even then, she tried to argue that she'd been manipulated, that she was a victim too. The jury didn't buy it. She got 8 years for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. I attended every day of her trial, not out of vindictiveness, but because I needed to see it through to the end. Lucas came with me sometimes, silent and stoic beyond his years. He hadn't spoken to his mother since that day at our house. After the sentencing, as the bailiff led Selena away, she looked back at me one last time. I did love you once, she said. I believed her. That was the tragedy of it all. She had loved me, just not enough. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. I'd become something of a local celebrity, the honest mechanic who'd taken down a ring of sophisticated con artists. I ignored their questions, keeping my head down as I walked to my truck. 3 months later, Blake's Custom Off-Road was back on its feet. The court had ordered full restitution, and surprisingly, we actually got most of it when authorities seized Mark's hidden accounts. I hired 2 new mechanics and was looking at the vacant lot next door to expand our space. My parents' farm was safe. I made sure of that. In fact, I worked with a land conservation trust to place it in a protected easement, ensuring it could never be developed or used as collateral for loans. It would remain in the family for generations to come, just as it should. Lucas stayed with me, of course. He visited his mother in prison once, at her request. He came home quiet and withdrawn, and when I asked him how it went, he just shrugged and said, "She cried a lot." "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said after a moment. "I think I needed to see her like that to understand that she's not this big, scary villain, you know. She's just sad and she made really bad choices." I nodded, proud of his maturity and compassion, qualities his mother had never fully appreciated. Life went on. The scandal died down eventually, as scandals do in small towns. People still gave me sympathetic looks at the grocery store, and I heard whispers when I walked into the Rusty Nail for a beer with John. But it was getting better. One evening, about a year after it all went down, Lucas was waiting on the porch when I got home, a grin on his face. "What's got you so happy?" I asked as I got out of the truck. He held up an envelope. "Early acceptance to Montana State Engineering Program." "What?" I rushed up the steps and grabbed the letter. Sure enough, there it was in black and white. My boy, because that's what he was, biology be damned, was going to college. "Lucas, this is amazing. Why didn't you tell me you applied early?" He shrugged, but his smile was a mile wide. "Wanted to surprise you, and I wasn't sure I'd get in." I pulled him into a bear hug. "Of course you got in. You're the smartest kid in your class." "Second smartest," he corrected. Always honest. "Emily Johnson beat me by 2 points in calculus." "Well, Emily Johnson doesn't know how to rebuild a transmission, does she?" I laughed. "This calls for a celebration. Steaks at the grill." "Actually," Lucas said, looking suddenly serious, "I was thinking we could drive out to the farm. Tell Grandma and Grandpa in person." My heart swelled at the way he called my parents Grandma and Grandpa, a habit he'd started over the past year as we spent more time at the farm. They'd embraced him completely, treating him exactly the same as they would have if he'd been my flesh and blood. "That sounds perfect," I said. "They're going to be so proud." And they were. My mother cried, my father clapped Lucas on the back so hard he nearly fell over. And we stayed for dinner that turned into a small impromptu party when a few neighbors stopped by and heard the news. As we drove home that night, Lucas asleep in the passenger seat, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Despite everything Selena and Mark had tried to take from us, they hadn't managed to break what mattered most, our family. "We home." Lucas mumbled sleepily as I pulled into our driveway. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "We're home."